There are mysteries in this life that only a handful ever truly grasp. Secrets shrouded from the throngs, unveiled solely to those handpicked by God. Across the ages, he has branded his own, not with symbols you can trace with your fingers, but with sacred imprints that set them apart from the chaos of the world. These signs are unseen by mortal eyes, yet they pulse with a certainty felt only by those who bear them. You might assume that being chosen promises a road paved with ease, brimming with prosperity, peace, and extravagance, but the truth runs far deeper, far more stirring. The real chosen don't tally their value in silver or gold, nor do they hunger for the passing thrills that vanish with the wind. Instead, they hold something infinitely grander, a calling that lifts them beyond the ordinary, a flame that blazes deep within their core. And here's the jolt that might shake you. Not every soul who utters God's name is truly etched with his seal. There's a stark divide between those who merely voice his praise and those claimed by his Spirit. So the question hangs heavy. Do these marks rest on you? Countless wander through their days, certain that their belief alone secures their place. But faith without proof, without a shattering change, is a hollow echo. The Bible lays bare that God's own bears 7 unshakable signs, tokens no one can conjure, purchase, or mimic. These signs carve a line between the chosen and the misled, the authentic and the counterfeit. You must uncover what they are, hold them up to your life beneath the piercing gaze of God's truth. For when the shadows fade, only 2 kinds remain, those who wear his seals and those who don't. What you're about to hear isn't idle talk or everyday chatter. These are insights granted only to those ready to pursue, to listen, to yield to God's summons. If you're still with me, it's no coincidence. You're reaching for something richer, something true, and I assure you, by the end of this video, you'll view yourself through a lens you've never dared to lift. Before we step forward, if you crave wisdom that pierces the veil and yearns for more awakenings like this, I invite you to press the like button. It's your way of saying that you're ready to walk this path with me. And if you don't want to miss a moment on the path we're walking together, subscribe to the channel and press the bell to receive notifications of the latest episodes. Now let me ask you something vital. I know your moments are precious, but you're here because something within you stirs for God's love. So pause and claim something bold over your life. His word holds the power to remake you. And when you speak it, you tether yourself to its strength. Right now, drop into the comments. I believe God will lead me through every storm. Have you ever woken up one day and felt something stir within you? A whisper, a tremble, a flicker of warmth that you couldn't quite name? It's not the kind of shift that comes with a new season or a fleeting burst of happiness from a well-earned reward. No, this is something raw, something that begins in the deepest hollows of your being where no one else can see. This is the first mark of those chosen by God, a heart transformed, a heart that once sat heavy and still, now pulsing with a fire that refuses to die. Imagine a slab of stone, rough and unyielding, sitting in the dark for years. Then picture it splitting apart, not by force, but by a gentle, relentless heat that reveals a living flame inside. That's what God does when he claims you. In Ezekiel 36:26, he promises something breathtaking. He'll rip out the heart of stone you've carried and replace it with one of flesh, soft, alive, beating with a rhythm you didn't know you could feel. This isn't a quick fix or a shallow promise. It's a remaking, a tearing down of everything you thought you were, only to build you back with a purpose that burns brighter than anything you've ever chased. Think of Saul, a man whose life was a storm of fury and certainty. He hunted down believers with a zeal that could shake mountains, his heart locked in a fortress of righteousness, or so he thought. But on that road to Damascus, a light pierced through, not just the sky, but the very walls he'd built around himself. It knocked him to the ground, blinded him, and in that moment of darkness, something broke open. When he stood up, he wasn't Saul anymore. He was Paul, a man whose every step now echoed with the love of God. That's what a transformed heart looks like. It's not a subtle shift or a quiet adjustment. It's a revolution. Your eyes start to see differently. The shine of coins, the weight of titles, the allure of luxury. They fade into shadows, mere echoes of a life you no longer belong to. You begin to speak with a tenderness you didn't know you had, to think with a clarity that cuts through the noise, to love with a depth that reaches beyond yourself. Have you ever stood still in a moment of silence and felt the things you once craved slip away like dust through your fingers? That's the mark awakening. It's God pulling you aside, whispering that you were never meant to live for what fades, but for what endures. Consider Zacchaeus, a man who'd climbed the ladder of wealth only to find himself stranded in a tree, watching life pass by. He was rich, yes, pockets heavy with coins, but his soul was starving. Then Jesus looked up, called his name, and something snapped inside him. That day he didn't just climb down from a branch, he stepped into a new life. Half his wealth poured out to the poor, not because he had to, but because he couldn't hold it anymore. His heart had found a new treasure. That's what this mark does to you. It turns your hands from grasping to giving, your focus from getting to seeking, your measure of worth from what you own to who you belong to. But let's be honest, this isn't a change you can will into being. It's not about waking up one morning and deciding to be better. It's a surrender, a breaking open of everything you've held tight. Maybe it came in a quiet hour, when the weight of your years pressed down, and you heard that faint voice asking, "What are you living for?" That's God reaching in, peeling away the layers of greed, pride, and fear, planting a seed of something eternal. You stop chasing the world's applause and start resting in His embrace. The chosen know this truth. They've been bought with the blood of Jesus, and that price redefines everything. Their identity isn't stitched into the fabric of success or sewn with threads of gold. It's written in the hands of the one who holds them. So take a breath and ask yourself, has that fire sparked in you? Has your heart turned from stone to flame, from the temporary to the everlasting? If it has, you're carrying the first mark, a sign no mirror can show, but every soul can sense. This truth might catch you off guard, might even pierce a little. Not everyone who calls out to God bears His mark. It's a reality that sits heavy, doesn't it? We've all crossed paths with those who wear faith like a well-tailored coat, words polished to a shine, routines carved into their days, a Bible resting proudly on the table. But peel back the layers and what's there? Too often it's silence. No fire, no shift, no life beneath the surface. It's like a piece of jewelry that glitters in the sun but turns brittle under the heat of a flame. The chosen aren't like that. Their faith isn't a performance they put on, it's a fire that consumes them, a mark that runs deeper than any words can reach. Picture a gathering of voices, all lifting up the name of God. I believe, I trust, I'm His. But only a few radiate a warmth that fills the room. That's the divide God sees, the one He's always searching for. Faith isn't about mastering the script or filling the air with holy phrases. It's about a heart that's been touched, broken, and set ablaze. Let's linger here for a moment. How many times have you spoken words you didn't fully live? Maybe you've sat in a quiet corner, repeating promises to yourself, while a nagging ache whispered that something wasn't right. That ache is a gift, a signal flashing in the dark. It's the space between what you say and what you carry inside. The chosen don't let that space linger. They've felt God's hand reach down, and it stripped away the mask they once wore. Think of the Pharisees, men who could recite every law, whose robes flowed with authority, whose prayers echoed through the streets. Yet Jesus saw through them, calling them tombs painted white, stunning on the outside, hollow within. Their faith was a shell, a monument to their own pride. Now turn your eyes to the woman at the well, a soul battered by her past, her hands empty of religious credentials. She didn't know the right verses, didn't have the perfect speech, but when Jesus spoke to her, something cracked open. Her heart turned and she ran to her village, not with a sermon, but with a story she couldn't keep inside. That's the mark. Not a polished exterior, but a living fire that spills out in every step. Where does this leave you? Have you ever felt your own words fall flat, like they're hovering above a truth you haven't yet reached? It's a question that deserves time, because the chosen don't just claim God, they're claimed by Him. Their faith isn't a shield to hide behind. It's a flame that lights their way. Maybe you've seen it in someone, a quiet figure whose presence steadies you, whose life speaks louder than any sermon. They don't need to announce their belief. You feel it in the air around them. That's the difference. The world is crowded with voices shouting faith, but God listens for the heartbeat beneath. He's not swayed by the loudest cries or the prettiest prayers. He searches for those who've let him in, who've let him shatter the stone and breathe life into the ashes. Look at Nicodemus, a teacher of the law who came to Jesus under the cover of night. He had the knowledge, the status, but his heart was still searching. When Jesus spoke of being born again, it wasn't just a lesson, it was an invitation to let go of the old and embrace the new. If you've ever felt that pull, the longing to bridge the gap between your words and your soul, it's not a burden, it's a call. The chosen aren't flawless, they're transformed. And that transformation begins with a question that echoes in the stillness. Are my words a mask, or does my heart bear his mark? This mark of a transformed heart draws you to a fork in the road, one path paved with treasures you can hold, the other winding toward riches you can only know. The chosen stand at this crossing and choose a way that leaves the world scratching its head. They release what sparkles to embrace what shines forever. Imagine a man hunched over a pile of gold, his fingers clenched tight, his face etched with worry despite his wealth. Then see another, hands open, pockets light, yet eyes alive with a peace that defies reason. That's the choice. The world screams that happiness lies in what you can stack up. More money, more praise, more ease. But the chosen have uncovered a truth that cuts deeper. Those things are fleeting, like mist that vanishes in the morning sun. True riches, the kind that settle into your bones and steady your soul, flow from a wellspring beyond this life. Picture the rich fool Jesus spoke of, a man who hoarded his harvest, building barns to hold his abundance, convinced he'd lock down his future. He lay down that night, smug and secure, only to hear God's voice. Tonight, your soul is demanded of you. All his wealth couldn't buy him another dawn. Now turn to Abraham, a man of plenty who walked away from it all when God called. He didn't cling to his herds or his homeland. He followed a promise he couldn't touch. His heart had been ignited, and that fire turned his gaze from what he could count to what he could trust. The chosen live this truth, not because possessions are wrong, but because they're not the point. They've tasted a richness that money can't match, the certainty of belonging to God. Have you ever watched someone run themselves ragged chasing a dream, only to find it hollow when they caught it? Maybe you felt that weariness yourself, pushing forward until the prize turned to dust in your hands. That's the deception of temporary treasures. They promise fullness, but leave you empty. Now recall a time when you felt truly alive, not because of what filled your home, but because of what filled your spirit. Maybe it was a moment when everything crumbled, yet a quiet strength rose up within you, holding you steady when you should have fallen. That's the wealth of a transformed heart. The chosen don't cling to what fades. They gather what lasts. Letting go isn't a loss. It's a discovery. When you stop clutching the need to prove yourself with things, you step into a freedom no vault can hold. It's a lesson that stings against the grain of everything we're taught. The world shouts, "Hold tighter!" But the chosen hear a softer voice, one that says, "Let go and find me." Think of the widow who gave her last coins, not out of duty, but out of a heart so full she couldn't hold back. Jesus saw her gift and called it greater than all the riches poured out that day. That's the mark, a heart unbound from the temporary, set ablaze for the eternal. So pause here. What are you gripping that's keeping you from this freedom? What's tethering your soul to a weight it wasn't meant to bear? The first mark of the chosen is a heart released from the fleeting, alive with the everlasting. And that fire, once kindled, becomes the spark that lights every step ahead. Picture a lantern glowing in the dead of night, its light cutting through a darkness so thick you could feel it pressing against your skin. That's what truth is like, a beacon that refuses to dim, no matter how fierce the shadows grow. For those chosen by God, this isn't just a passing glow they glance at, it's a fire they run toward. a flame they'd give anything to hold close, even when it burns. This is the second mark, a fierce, unyielding love for truth, a hunger that doesn't flinch when the cost climbs high. It's not about clinging to comfortable ideas or nodding along to what's easy to hear. No, this is a love that stares into the raw, unfiltered face of reality and says, "Yes, I'll follow you, no matter where you lead." Jesus declared in John 14:6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And those words aren't just a statement, they're a call. To love truth is to love Him, and the chosen hear that call echoing through every corner of their being. They don't just listen, they chase it, even when it demands they leave everything else behind. Think of the rich young man who stood before Jesus, his chest puffed with confidence, certain he'd already earned his place. He asked for eternal life, expecting a pat on the back, but Jesus looked straight through him. "Sell all you have," he said, "and follow me." That was the truth, the hard, piercing truth, and it stopped the man cold. His feet turned, his head bowed, and he walked away. The weight of his riches heavier than his desire for what lasted. He couldn't bear the light because it asked too much. The chosen are cut from a different cloth. When truth speaks, they don't shrink back. They step forward, hands trembling but hearts resolute. They know that anything less is a chain, a gilded trap disguised as freedom. Have you ever felt that moment when a truth hit you square in the chest, stripping away the excuses you'd built up? Maybe it was a quiet realization that the life you'd crafted wasn't the one you were meant for. That's the flame of truth flaring up, and the chosen don't douse it. They let it burn. Look at Thomas, the disciple who doubted. He didn't settle for hearsay. He demanded to see the wounds of Jesus with his own eyes. When truth stood before him, scars and all, he fell to his knees crying, "My Lord and my God." That's the mark, a love that seeks, that dares, that bows when it finds what's real. This isn't a casual affection, the kind that picks and chooses what's convenient. The world around us spins a web of half-truths, messages that promise peace without sacrifice, gain without giving, love without correction. Paul saw it coming in 2 Timothy 4:3, warning that people would gather voices to tickle their ears, soothing them with what they want instead of what they need. You've heard those voices, haven't you? The ones that say you can have it all, God and glory, faith and fortune, without ever letting go. But the chosen see through the haze. They know truth isn't a servant to bend to their whims. It's a master they bend toward. It's a love that costs, sometimes friendships, sometimes dreams, sometimes the very shape of the life you thought you'd live. Have you ever stood at that edge where truth asked you to leap into the unknown? Maybe it was a moment when you saw your own reflection too clearly, your flaws, your fears, and felt the pull to change. The chosen don't turn away from that pull. They lean into it because they've learned that truth doesn't just reveal, it redeems. It shatters the lies you've lived by and sets you free to become who you were always meant to be. That's the fire that never fades, the mark that brands their souls with a love too fierce to ignore. Now imagine standing in a storm, the kind that howls and rages, stripping away everything you thought would hold. The wind tears at your foundations, the rain blinds your eyes, and yet, somehow, you're still standing. That's the third mark of the chosen, a steadfastness that doesn't break when life does. It's not a promise of clear skies or smooth paths. God never offers that. Jesus laid it bare in John 16:33. "In this world you will have trouble, not might, not maybe, will." But he didn't stop there. "Take heart," he said, "I have overcome the world." The chosen carry that promise like a shield, not to dodge the blows, but to endure them. Their lives aren't marked by ease. They're forged in fire, tested in ways that would crumble anyone who hasn't felt that deeper strength. This isn't about escaping hardship. It's about walking through it, scars and all, with a faith that refuses to let go. Take Job, a man who once held the world in his hands, wealth, family, respect, all of it a testament to his blessings. Then in a single breath, it vanished. His children gone, his riches dust, his body racked with pain. The world would have understood if he'd cursed the heavens, if he'd shaken his fist and walked away. But Job didn't. He fell to the earth, yes, his heart torn open, but his lips still whispered worship. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's not weakness, that's a strength forged in the deepest furnace. The chosen know this. Every wound, every loss, every night of weeping has a purpose. God doesn't waste their pain. He refines it, turning their faith into something unshakable. Have you ever faced a day when everything you leaned on fell apart? Maybe it was a betrayal that cut deep, a failure that left you reeling, a grief that stole your breath. The chosen don't run from those days. They stand in them because they've learned that the storm isn't the end. It's the anvil where their souls are shaped. Look at Daniel, torn from his home, thrown into a land that mocked his God. He could have blended in, bowed to the idols, taken the easy way out. But when the king's decree banned prayer, Daniel didn't hesitate. He knelt by his window, facing Jerusalem, and spoke to the one he wouldn't forsake. The lion's den loomed, yet his faith didn't waver. That's the mark, a steadfastness that doesn't bend, even when the jaws of death snap close. The chosen carry scars, not as badges of shame, but as proof of their belonging. They've felt the weight of hardship and found it can't crush what God has built within them. Have you ever wondered why some trials seem to cling to you, relentless and unyielding? It's not a sign you've been forgotten. It's a whisper that you've been set apart. The enemy doesn't waste his arrows on those who pose no threat. The chosen endure because they know the one who walks with them, the one who turns their ashes into glory. Think of Peter, who denied Jesus 3 times, his courage failing in the courtyard's shadows. But when the risen Christ met him on the shore, those failures became fuel. Peter stood again, stronger, leading thousands to faith. That's the strength of the chosen. Scars don't define their defeat, they mark their victory. This steadfastness flows into a refusal that sets the chosen apart, a turning away from the world's soft promises. We live surrounded by a chorus of comfort, don't we? Voices that hum a lullaby of ease. More wealth will save you, more pleasure will fill you, more power will steady you. It's a song that's easy to sway to, a melody that lulls you into believing you can have it all without losing anything. But the chosen hear a different tune, one that cuts through the noise with a clarity that stings. Paul saw this tide rising in 2 Timothy 4:3, warning that people would chase after teachers who'd whisper what they longed to hear. Sweet lies dressed up as truth. You've felt that pull, haven't you? The temptation to settle for a faith that asks nothing, that lets you keep your hands full and your heart untouched. The chosen don't dance to that rhythm. They know the world's ease is a mirage, shimmering just out of reach, vanishing when you need it most. Think of Lot's wife standing on the edge of Sodom's ruin. God's command was clear: flee, don't look back. But the pull of what she'd known, the comfort, the familiarity, turned her head, and in that moment, she became a pillar of salt. She couldn't let go of the easy path, and it cost her everything. The chosen make a different choice. They see the glitter of the world's offerings, riches that rust, pleasures that fade, and they walk away. It's not because they despise good things, it's because they've tasted something better. Have you ever felt that tug, the whisper to stay where it's safe, to cling to what's known? Maybe it was a chance to compromise, to take the smooth road instead of the steep one. The chosen don't take that bait. They've learned that ease is a thief. It steals your soul while promising to save it. Look at Moses, raised in a palace, surrounded by Egypt's wealth. He could have stayed, wrapped in luxury, but he chose the wilderness, the reproach of God's people, because he saw a glory the world couldn't match. That's the refusal that marks them, a turning from the shallow to the deep. It's a choice that doesn't make sense to those watching from the sidelines. Why give up what feels good? Why walk away when you could stay? The chosen know the answer, because the easy way doesn't lead home. They've felt the pull of something greater, a call that demands they let go of what weighs them down. Have you ever stood at that brink where the world dangled its promises and something inside you said no? That's the mark stirring, a rejection of the fleeting for the sake of the forever. The chosen don't measure their lives by what they can keep. They measure it by what they're willing to release. It's a hard road, yes, but it's the one that leads to a richness no storm can steal. A richness that shines through every trial, every scar, every step they take toward the one who's called them his own. Imagine a lighthouse standing alone on a jagged cliff, its beams slicing through the fog while waves crash below. It doesn't blend into the storm, it rises above it, a solitary glow that guides even in the wildest night. That's what holiness looks like, a life set apart, not because it seeks to stand out, but because it longs to reflect something greater. This is the fourth mark of the chosen, a thirst for holiness, a deep, unshakable yearning to live in a way that pleases God, no matter how the world churns around them. It's not a rule book they follow or a badge they wear. It's a pull within, a love that drives them to be pure, to be different, to be His. The Bible lays it out in 1 Peter 1:15-16, "As He who called you is holy, so be holy in all you do." That's not a suggestion whispered in passing. It's a command carved into the soul of the chosen. They don't chase this because they're afraid of judgment. They chase it because their hearts beat for the one who set them free. Think of Joseph, a young man thrown into a pit by his own blood, then sold into a land far from home. He rose from chains to power, standing in Egypt's courts with wealth and influence at his fingertips. Yet when temptation came knocking, Potiphar's wife with her enticing words, he didn't pause to weigh his options. He fled, leaving his cloak behind, because he knew no pleasure was worth staining the purity God had planted in him. That's the thirst of the chosen, not a grudging duty, but a fierce desire to guard what's sacred. They don't flirt with shadows or dance near the edge. They run toward the light, even when it costs them. Have you ever felt that shift, where the things that once drew you in now feel like chains you'd rather break? Maybe it's a habit you've outgrown, a crowd you no longer fit with, a choice that once felt right but now sits wrong. That's the mark stirring, God pulling you out of the gray, calling you to stand distinct. Look at Esther, a queen in a pagan palace, surrounded by excess and intrigue. She could have melted into the splendor, but when her people's lives hung in the balance, she fasted, prayed, and stepped forward, wholly set apart, a vessel for God's will. This thirst isn't about perfection, it's about pursuit. The chosen don't claim to be spotless. They know their flaws too well, but they refuse to settle for a life that drifts with the current. The world pushes a different story. Chase more, indulge more, live for yourself. Holiness says no. It's not restriction, but liberation. It's the freedom to walk unburdened by the weight of compromise, to see wealth and success not as gods to worship, but as tools to serve. Have you ever stood apart when everyone else leaned in? Maybe it was a moment when the easy yes felt hollow and a quiet no rose up instead. That's the chosen living out their mark, a life that mirrors God's character, woven with love, patience, and humility. They don't measure their days by what they gain. They measure them by how closely they align with Him. It's a costly road, standing alone, making choices others scoff at. But to the chosen, it's worth every step. They've tasted the emptiness of blending in and found it wanting. Now they thirst for something deeper, something that sets them apart not for pride, but for love, a love that reshapes every breath they take. Now picture a thread, thin but unbreakable, stretching from your hands to the sky, trembling with every word you speak. That's prayer for the chosen, not a ritual, not a last resort, but a lifeline that ties them to the heart of God. This is the fifth mark, a life steeped in powerful prayer, a connection so vital it's not just something they do, it's who they are. The Bible urges in 1 Thessalonians 5:17 to pray without ceasing, and for the chosen, that's not a lofty ideal. It's the air they breathe. It's not about endless hours locked in a room or rote words mumbled into the void. It's a constant turning toward God, a dialogue that hums through their days, steadying them when everything else shakes. They don't pray to bargain for blessings or to pile up riches. They pray to be near Him, to feel His presence flood the cracks of their lives. That's the power. They don't seek what God can give as much as they seek God Himself. Consider Daniel, a man whose faith landed him in a lion's den. When the king forbade prayer, Daniel didn't hide or hesitate. He opened his window, knelt toward Jerusalem, and poured out his soul 3 times a day. He knew the cost, felt the threat, but his lifeline to God was stronger than any decree. That's the chosen. They pray when the world says stop, when the ground beneath them quakes. Or think of Hannah, her heart breaking under the silence of a barren womb. She didn't turn bitter or give up. She wept before God, her lips moving without sound, her spirit crying out until heaven answered. Her prayer didn't just bring a son, it shifted a nation through Samuel. Have you ever found yourself on your knees, not because you had to, but because you couldn't hold it in? Maybe it was a night when hope felt thin and words spilled out like water from a broken dam. That's the mark, a prayer that moves mountains, not because it's loud, but because it's real. The chosen don't see it as a tool to get more. They see it as a bridge to give more, of their fears, their trust, their very selves. This power shines brightest in the dark. When everything collapses, when there's no safety net, no clear way out, the chosen press in harder. They've learned that prayer isn't about changing the storm, it's about changing them. Take Elijah, standing alone on Mount Carmel, facing a drought and a nation lost to idols. He didn't plead for rain to prove a point. He prayed to align with God's will, and fire fell from heaven before the clouds ever opened. That's the strength of their lifeline. It shakes the unseen, bends the impossible. Have you ever felt that pull to cry out when silence would have been easier? Maybe it was a moment when despair loomed and something within you refused to let go. The chosen live there, in that space where prayer becomes their anchor, their weapon, their song. They don't wait for calm to seek God. They seek Him in the chaos, knowing He hears every whisper. It's not about perfect words, it's about a heart laid bare, a spirit that knows its home is with Him. That's the mark. A lifeline that holds when everything else slips away, a power that proves they're never alone. Now envision a garden blooming in the harshest desert, flowers unfurling where nothing should grow. That's the 6th mark of the chosen, the fruit of the Spirit, a beauty that defies the barrenness around them. Jesus said in Matthew 7-16, "By their fruit you will recognize them." And for the chosen, this isn't a boast. It's a quiet, undeniable truth. It's not about wealth stacked high or titles carved in stone. It's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control spilling out naturally, like water from a hidden spring. Galatians 5:22-23. You don't need to hear them declare it. You see it in the way they move, the way they touch the world. An apple tree doesn't shout its name. It simply bears apples, and the chosen don't proclaim their faith. They live it, their lives a testament no one can argue against. Think of Jesus Himself, walking this earth with no palace, no crown, no treasury. He had nothing the world counts as success, yet everywhere He went, people felt something shift. His love healed the broken, His peace calmed the raging, His patience lifted the fallen. He didn't need to prove who He was, His fruit did that. The chosen carry this echo, not because they strive to impress, but because they've been reshaped from within. Have you ever met someone whose presence alone steadied you? Maybe they didn't say much, but their kindness wrapped around you like a warm coat. Their joy lit up a room gone dark. That's the mark. It can't be faked, can't be forced. It's not about loud displays or grand gestures. It's the quiet bloom of a life rooted in God. Look at Ruth, a widow with nothing left, choosing loyalty over ease. She followed Naomi into uncertainty, and her faithfulness bore fruit, a legacy that reached King David. Her life didn't scream, it sang. This fruit doesn't grow without surrender. It's not easy to bear love when bitterness knocks, or peace when chaos reigns. Jesus said in John 12:24, "Unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." The chosen understand this. They let go of themselves to let God grow through them. Have you ever felt that struggle, where anger wanted to take root, but something softer pushed through instead? That's the mark at work, a transformation so deep it changes what flows out of you. The world chases what's seen, fortune, fame, but the chosen bear what's felt, a proof that doesn't need words. Think of Stephen, facing stones with a face like an angel's, forgiving as he fell. His fruit wasn't power, it was grace, undeniable even in death. When people look at you, do they sense that same light? Love that doesn't falter, peace that doesn't break. The chosen don't live to be noticed, they live to reflect him, and that reflection is the evidence no storm can erase. Finally, picture a seal pressed into molten gold, a mark that no fire can melt, no hand can wipe away. That's the seventh mark, the seal of God, the ultimate sign that the chosen belong to him. It's not a trophy they earn or a crown they craft. It's a gift only God can give, a stamp of eternity on their souls. Ephesians 4:30 calls it clear. Do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, with whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. This isn't a mark you see with your eyes. It's one you feel in your bones, a certainty that you're his, set apart for something beyond this fleeting world. Throughout history, God has marked his own, Israel with his laws, his followers with his spirit, and in Revelation, a final sealing that divides his people from the lost. It's not for everyone, not a casual gift tossed to those who merely nod his way. It's for the chosen, those who obey, who trust, who surrender everything to walk with him. Think of Noah standing in a world drowning in its own ruin. Every soul around him chased pleasure and power, but Noah built an ark, step by obedient step, because God had sealed him. When the floods came, that seal held him safe. Not because he was perfect, but because he was his. Today, that same seal rests on the chosen, a promise that no chaos can undo. Have you ever felt that quiet assurance? A whisper that says you're not alone, no matter what rages outside? That's the mark, a belonging so deep it steadies you when everything else falls. Look at John, exiled on Patmos, his body worn, but his spirit soaring. He saw visions of the end, of God's sealed ones standing firm, because he bore that mark himself. It's not about escaping trials. The enemy fights harder against those who carry it, but about enduring them with a confidence no force can shake. This seal is about relationship, not religion. It's not a checklist or a set of rules. It's knowing God, walking with him, feeling his spirit breathe through you. The chosen don't trust in what they've built or what they've gained. They trust in who holds them. The world runs after security in things that crumble, but the chosen rest in a security that stands forever. Have you ever sensed that pull? That unshakable knowing that you're his, even when the ground shifts beneath you? That's the seal, eternal, unbreakable, yours if you've given yourself fully to him. Think of Mary Magdalene, once lost, now standing at the tomb, the first to see the risen Jesus. She bore his mark not because of her past, but because of her surrender. The chosen walk with that same certainty. No storm can steal it, no doubt can erase it. It's the final mark, the one that ties every other together, a sign that you're not just passing through, you're home, forever his. These 7 marks, a heart transformed, a fierce love for truth, steadfastness through storms, a thirst for holiness, the power of prayer, the fruit of the Spirit, and the seal of God, aren't just a list to check off. They're a mirror to hold up to your soul. They tell a story of a life remade, a purpose reclaimed, a belonging that nothing can break. The chosen don't wear these signs like medals. They live them, breathe them, carry them in every step through a world that often pulls the other way. This isn't about perfection or pride. It's about surrender, about letting God carve his mark so deep within you that it shines even when the lights go out. You've walked this path with me, felt these truths press against your own story. So now I ask you, do these marks echo in you? Are they alive in the way you love, the way you stand, the way you seek him? Take a moment, let that question linger, and share your thoughts below. Your voice matters. It's part of this journey we're on together. If this message has stirred something in you, if it's lit a spark you want to carry forward, hit that like button. It's a small way to say this spoke to you. And don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone searching for the same truths you found here. The light you've caught isn't meant to stay hidden, it's meant to spread. If you're ready for more, subscribe now and ring that bell. Every new video is a step deeper into this calling, and I don't want you to miss a single one. Thank you for being here, for listening with an open heart. I'll see you in the next video.